And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a set. That is what comedy comes down to. Anytime you go anywhere to do comedy, they can say, you got a set. Sometimes your set is 3 minutes, sometimes it's 45, but that's what it comes down to. You do a set. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to really quickly kind of walk you through what a set is, how that works, and then I'm just going to open it up for questions. I know that this is kind of one of the weirder professions that they've had in here this week, so I just want to open it up and see what you guys have to say. So any questions you have, regardless of whether it is writing related, which I'd love to talk about, or if it's just something about the business, feel free to think about that now. So yeah, so the set. So basically, comedy is broken down into the component part, which you guys call a joke, people in the business call it a bit. The reason we call it a bit is because we go, I want to talk about that for a bit. And that's what it came to. You take a bit, and like the first thing I said about it, it's great to be here. I'm from Detroit, it's great to be anywhere. That's a really, really simple bit. You have a normal setup, which is it's good to be here. Then you have a twist, which is I'm from Detroit, it's great to be anywhere. And I get to the next part, which is, seriously, I made it out of Thunderdome. And that's the punchline. And then anything after that, you call a tag. And that's a bit. You put a bunch of bits together, and that's called a chunk. Again, very professional terminology. Because I went from Grace Lake to Detroit to hockey, and then I went to my best friend's wedding. None of those things have anything to do with one another. But if you tie them together in a way that it makes it feel like a story, nobody cares that you're changing subjects. Because I was like, it's great to be here, let's talk about Detroit. I go to hockey, and I go, no, seriously, it's great to be here. And you guys go, all right, he's really happy to be here. And then I was like, yeah, because I lost my best friend. And I've just completely changed topics on you without you guys going, why is he talking about that? I thought it was from Detroit. That's a chunk, when you get a few things that aren't necessarily related, but you can tie them together. And then I went from there, I went to my buddy's wedding, I went to being single and dating, I went to my family. And then I stopped there, and I gave it a minute, and I went, it is good to be back in a building, I'm a teacher, and that's a separate chunk. So those things all together, that's a set. And some people will do a set, and they just talk about the same thing the entire way through. I get bored with it, so I just kind of bounce around. But that's what it comes down to. Now, does anybody have a specific question about, like, writing? Y'all, I'm the only thing standing between you and weekends, so you better wake up. I will do this all night. Or if I'm to have learned anything from Mean Girls, till 4. Love that some of you guys have seen. We got one in the back. Where we got?
How hard is it to be original?
How hard is it to be original? That is a great question. It's not that hard to be original, just in the sense that, like, you're always trying to be yourself on stage. You really are. Like, everybody will ask you, like, oh, which comics do you try to be like? And I go, none of them. Because as soon as I start to sound like another comic, people go, that's not you, that's Pryor, that's Carlin, or that's Seinfeld. But, so it's very easy to try to be yourself, but when I say that it's difficult, it's because you really will run into stuff that you do a joke and you think that it's completely original and you're so proud of yourself, and then somebody goes, Dan Kip did that joke. And you just go, crap, okay. I worked really hard on that. So then you have to find a voice. You have to find a different way to be yourself. And that's one of the biggest things in comedy is that you're trying to be you to a whole group of people that has no idea who you are. So like you're basically trying to take the things that make your friends laugh, which by the way, do you guys realize that everyone on this earth is funny? Like everybody's always like, you're really funny. I'm like, yeah, we all are. That's how we make friends. You've never been like, I hate your boring stories, let's hang out sometime. Like somebody makes you laugh, you're like, I like that guy, we're friends now. So like everybody has this ability to make other people laugh. What a comic is doing is taking stuff that makes people that they know laugh and figuring out how to make it universal. It's taking an inside joke and making it an outside joke. So you really do have to focus and you do have to listen to other comics to make sure you're not sounding too much like them. But if you over-listen to a comic, you just start to hear their voice in your head. And that's a terrible thing when you're like, Brian Regan is writing a joke right now in my face. Don't understand. Who else got something here? Oh, right here.
What got you into comedy?
What got me into comedy? Blackmail. I've been talking about doing this my whole life. When I was a little kid, my dad used to take me and my brother on baseball trips to go see different stadiums, and we'd listen to Cosby and Seinfeld and Ellen DeGeneres and 80s, 90s comics, and I loved it, and I always talked about it, but I have horrible stage fright. I have my entire life. I've always had a horrible stage fright. I was never going to do it. But my buddy was like, everything you say to me is so funny that if you don't get on stage, I'm going to make fun of you and call you a wuss on Facebook until you do. It lasted 18 days. And then I was like, all right, I'll do it. My mom is asking questions. Knock it off. And that's really what it started as. I used to write, and I always liked writing funny stuff, but it wasn't until somebody made me do this that I got a minute into my first set, and I went, I love this, I'm never stopping. It's over here, in the back. Sure. I have had writer's block, I'm not joking, for the last 3 months in a row. It's awful. Here's the thing, writer's block, it doesn't matter what you're writing, it will hit you. And it's not the what's way? The Rams way? Do you know what he's talking about? I'm aware that we are all Rams. Also, that is beach day for some stupid reason. Is the Rams way like the school morality code? It's like, so instead of just being like, you're being a jerk, it's like rule 7.A. It's why you're not allowed to come back here anymore. Writer's block sucks. Writer's block happens all the time. I'm a stand-up comic. My roommate Emily is a stand-up comic. Her boyfriend Ben is a stand-up comic. So we're always writing stuff in our apartments. And I just honestly, sometime like right after the holidays, I had been writing a bunch of stuff, and it just kind of took like a week off because I was trying to relax. And then for about 3 months, I didn't write a single good joke. I wrote, actually, here, I can show you this right here. I wrote that many bad jokes. This is a set list of all the stuff I was trying that never worked. And the thing is that just like any other discipline of writing, you just keep going. The thing that finally broke me out of it was 2 weeks ago, my sister, who is like super ridiculously annoyingly liberal, and my uncle, who's the same thing but conservative, decided to discuss gay marriage on Facebook, because that's smart. And they just got into it, and they're calling each other names and throwing Bible verses at each other. And so I just went home, and I wrote like a 4-page dissertation about why I hate each of them. With bullet points and references and graphs. And I got like 3 new jokes out of it. And that's the kind of thing, when you get writer's block, you just have to keep going. And you have to understand that a lot of it's gonna be bad. 95% of what you write is not gonna end up on stage. But if you don't keep writing it, you're not gonna get to that 5%. Fact. I wanna hang out with you. You seem fun. Sorry, we had a question up. Go ahead. The biggest gig that I've ever done. About a year ago. You guys know Anthony Jeselnik? Yeah. Comedy Center? Why are we laughing at that? That's a silly name. Jeselnik. You guys have, yes or no, you've heard of it? He's on the Comedy Central? Yeah, so he came out to the Improv in Schaumburg last year. I got to open for him. And it was 6 shows. That room seats 450 people, and he sold out the entire week. There were 5 tickets not sold for the weekend. So that was definitely my most fun weekend. He actually just released his new special called Caligula. And that weekend was when he was like introducing all this new material. So it was really cool because I got to see this guy try out brand new stuff in front of 6 shows times 400, 2,700 people. Math teacher, how close was I? Math teachers are like, we're not in here. So that was probably my biggest show. I think the biggest single audience I've done is something like 600 people. But that weekend was just because every single show was packed and they were awesome. And when you have really packed shows, people will just trust your jokes more. Like regardless, like I could do the exact same thing I just did right now in front of like 30 people and 3,000 people and get completely different reactions just based on the fact that when you're a small crowd, like this is a great crowd, but like when it's a really small crowd, people can hear themselves laugh and they hate that. Because everybody's like, ha, oh no. They saw me. But when you get a big room like this, like you guys have no qualms because if you laugh, there's probably 17 other people minimum that are laughing too and you don't get worked up about it. So when you get those big shows, it's great because everybody just belly laughs, and all of a sudden you're standing there going like, all right, I'll wait. All right, moving on. There were two. Somebody else. Yeah, go ahead. What got me into comedy? It was the combination, like I told you, like I said, with growing up listening to stuff, and then I used to write. Actually, here's a little confession for you guys. I worked on Broadway for a while. I wrote with a writer out there. I did a book with him. Then I moved to Chicago. I did the writing program at Second City. And the writing program at Second City is awesome. It's totally cool. It's actually kind of like comedy theory. Because Second City doesn't have writers. Nobody's writing the shows. The cast is doing the shows. So you're just learning how it works. There's no end game. So you just have to think about comedy works. It's really fun. And so we get through it. It's 5 semesters. It's about 2 years or 3 years, however it works out. We get to the very last semester when all the writers in the class put together a show. And then they cast it from all the acting students at Second City. And my first ever sketch that I wrote gets on stage. And all these other actors go up there and they say my lines and they got my laugh. And I'm in the back of the room like, that is my laugh. I didn't know I had that ego in me, but I hated watching somebody else get my credit. It's that simple. It was just me being like, no, I don't want you getting credit for what I did. And so I started thinking about like, maybe I should do it. And then my friend finally made me go out and do it. And that's the reason I did it, is because I liked the writing, but it was just like, nope, that's mine. I love that you guys all tightened up on that. Like, you're judgy. Okay. What else? We had lots of hands going up. I'm trying to keep it in order. Well, go ahead. You gonna make it? You're so excited for your moment, you have nothing to say. Finally! You know it's going well when the audience heckles itself. Want me to come back? Does somebody want to rescue this poor man? Over here. How do I handle a heckler? What a wonderful and timely question. When you first start out doing comedy, you learn a lot just asking other people how to do it. We have a completely different show going on back here, don't we? So what I was told by Bert Haas is the guy that books all the Zanies comedy clubs in Chicago. And when you're new, he has all the new comics come in and he kind of talks to you guys. And what he told me is that the first time somebody heckles, assume that they're trying to be nice. Like most of the time, a heckle isn't really somebody trying to ruin the show. It's somebody that's enjoying it. And they just turn to their friend, they go, that was amazing! And it just throws off the whole show. And also, a lot of the times, I can't even hear what somebody says. I hear that something is said, but I don't know what it is. In a lot of comics, they hear something and they immediately get pissed. And they just go after somebody and their mother and their background and their racial heritage and just distrust, I'm gonna break your face. And often it wasn't something that was that bad. So typically, I handle it this way. If somebody says something, I just kind of I'll say, okay, whatever, we got it up here, no big deal. Second time, I'm like, hey, are you okay? Are you enjoying the show? What's going on? Third time, let loose. And that is amazing. Because I am the only profession in the world where if I try to hurt somebody's feelings, a room full of people will applaud and agree with me. And that's another reason why you do the 3, is because the first time somebody says something, if you just jump down their throat and they weren't being rude, the whole audience knows it, and they're like, why are you being such a jerk? Like, they weren't trying to hurt the show, so you want to give it time. The second time, you still try to be patient. It shows them that you're actually trying to engage. The third time, the rest of the audience is like, I hate him too, get him. And that's the best thing, is you just try to play it, slow play it, because you never know the first time. But if they won't let it go, it's very important. Like, I've had friends that are like, oh, I'm coming to see your show this weekend, I'm gonna heckle you. And I'm like, I dare you. I am way better at this than you. And that's the thing, is there's a power dynamic in this, that the reason that jokes don't really work in conversations is because I'm up here with a microphone and a spotlight. I am in control of it. This is my room. and you guys are an audience. When I'm like just hanging out talking with people and they want me to tell a joke, it doesn't work because there's not that power dynamic. So when I'm up on the stage, like so many comics are afraid that somebody's gonna say something in the middle of the show, and it's like, dude, you are still the only one with a make you louder stick and an everybody look at me beam on your face. So you just kind of ride it out, and I think I've only ever gotten mean enough that I made a person leave the show one time, and she deserved it. She was making fun of a comedian who had traumatic brain damage and a lisp and a stutter, and she kept making fun of him during his set, and I'm like, that's not cool. And the headliner was like, don't worry about it, I'll handle it. I was like, all right, I'm not gonna say anything. And then she like started making fun of me, and I'm like, I can take it. Why were you making fun of George? That was rude. And then she said something else, and then I just lashed into her. And she was old, and I pointed that out in several different ways. Pretty sure 2 of them are illegal, but I don't care. Do you have anything this side? I feel like I'm kind of way over here. Oh, right here. How do I judge how funny my jokes are? I like that. The main thing is just listening to an audience reaction. When you start out doing comedy, the first thing you do is open mics. And an open mic is literally, it's comedy practice. Somebody usually has like a guitar amp and a microphone stand, and they put it in a bar or a basement or a bowling alley, and it's just, like you sign up, you do 3 minutes. And so you just keep doing those over and over, and you just have to listen to how people are engaging. If you've been talking for too long and nobody's laughing, you're not doing it right. But at the same time, like sometimes you have bad audiences and stuff, so one of the best thing to do if you're trying to do new material is you write everything that you find funny, and then anytime you perform it, try to videotape it, if possible. If not, pretty much everybody has a smartphone at this point in history, right? Yeah. You don't have a phone? Work harder. Just kidding. You guys are so defensive. She didn't deserve that. I was joking. So a lot of comics, you'll see them walk on stage and literally just put their phone right here, and that's them recording it. Like everybody thinks that they're just looking at the time, but they're recording the set. And that's the best way for you to get better at it, is to hear yourself, to watch yourself. As silly as it sounds, I know a ton of comics that will actually walk into their bathroom with like a hairbrush and stand in the mirror and watch themselves deliver their jokes. And that really helps because you see yourself and you learn things like, by watching yourself, you'll realize that, oh, this time it went better because I raised my eyebrow at this time. And this time it didn't work better because I was going too fast and I was rambling, and so people couldn't keep up with the jokes. And by the time I got to the end of it, they were like, that was too many words. So that's the best thing to do, is to watch yourself, to listen to people, and then also, you have to be able to take criticism in this game. And I feel like that's probably true for any type of writing, whether it's music or journalism, poetry. You have to be able to listen to somebody say, I don't really like this part, without hearing them say, I hate you, you failure, kill yourself. Because that's how a lot of people take it. Like the moment you're like, listen, I didn't really get this, they're like, how dare you? I worked so hard. So you just have to have an open mind that if somebody's actually sitting you down to say, hey, like, this part right here I don't get, you have to know that they actually trust you, and you need to trust them that they're not attacking you. And you have to be able to unpersonalize it. Go, all right, I know that he or she likes me as a person, they just didn't like this joke. Why didn't they like it? And you have to be able to be analytical. Like the way you do with all of your papers. You have to be able to break down your argument, figure out why. What is happening in the back there? Somebody waving with an orange thing?
Oh, that's me?
Yeah, is that okay? I'm sorry, in comedy terms, if you get a light in the back of the room, it means your time is about to be done, and I just saw this orange thing flapping. I'm like, that is a very weird way to do that. I apologize for calling attention to you. I now know that this room hates that. So there was a question right in front of you, though. Yeah, go ahead. In terms of who I looked up to, I always tell people this when they ask, like, who's your favorite comic? Something like that. I can tell you probably 15 comics I love for every one comic I don't like. So I use anything from anyone I can. I love watching Bill Cosby because he's the best storyteller of all time. Anything Bill Cosby says is funny, and it's because of his face and his mannerisms. And like, it doesn't even have to be the words. Like, he will sit down in a chair funny. And it's amazing to watch that. Greg Giraldo was a comic. Do you guys know Greg Giraldo at all? couple of you. He hit his prime about 10 years ago. He actually passed away a couple years ago. He was my favorite comedic writer. He actually dropped out of law school to become a comic. And you'll actually find out that a lot of comics are like that. He was like that. Dimitri Martin used to be in law school. He dropped out of that. He actually, in his Comedy Central Presents, he ended it by saying, "Sorry, Mom, I'm not going back to law school." That was the end of it. But so I love those guys because they're really smart writers. Like, they'll take a dumb joke and make it smarter. They'll take the most innocuous thing. Greg Giraldo, his dad is Cuban, I think. And he had this joke. You guys remember the Taco Bell dog? This is old, but yo quiero Taco Bell, that thing. Greg Giraldo, he's like, my dad hates the Taco Bell dog because he thinks that that's what everybody thinks all Hispanic people are like. And I'm like, Dad, what are you talking about? He's like, everybody thinks we just want Taco Bell. He's like, what do you want the dog to say? Yo quiero Taco Bell. But that's only one of my many interests. I also enjoy bowling and frozen yogurt. And that's, like, it's a dumb joke, but it's so smart. It takes a smart person to see that through to the end. Over here. Do I have a favorite chunk? That changes from time to time. The whole thing that I just ended on there about the ADD stuff and the woman yelling at me, which totally happened. That was my favorite for a very long time. It was like the first thing that ever worked for me regularly, and so I loved it, and then I told it like 400 times. And I remember one day walking off stage, Zany's downtown, you do 9 shows a week. And I walked off stage after the Saturday night show. It was number 8 of 9 for the weekend. And I looked at my friend, I'm like, I know everybody else loves that joke, but if I hear it again, I'm gonna strangle myself. And so you kind of rotate it through. And so I took that and I actually set it aside for like a year, and I just stopped telling it so I could work on new stuff. And then, like, the way you work up through comedy, you start as an open micer, and you're doing like 3 to 5 minutes at different places. Then somebody's like, hey, I really like your stuff, why don't you come out and check out my show? And then you'll do, it's called showcasing, and you'll do like 6 to 10 minutes. And then you get hired somewhere to be their host. And as the host of the show, you do about 10, 15, and then they move you up to a feature act. And a feature act is the guy in the middle that does 25 to a half an hour. And then you ultimately move up to headliner, where you're doing 45 minutes to an hour, or if you're Richard Lewis, an hour and 30 drunken minutes. Carl wasn't lying, that was rough. But so you work your way up, and so, like, I would take away that chunk and I would stop working on it, because at that point I was doing like 15-minute sets and I wanted to get better at other stuff. And then I moved up to the 25-minute set and brought it right back in. And then it's almost like seeing an old friend where you're like, I missed you. How have you been? And then that joke actually, once I brought it back and started doing it again, it had been long enough that I actually started to fix that joke with stuff that I didn't even notice before. But before I get out of here, I'm going to do one more, and it's my current favorite one, so I think that's what you were probably going for. It's like, can you just do another joke? Yeah, that's cool. And I'm going to get like 1 or 2 more questions real quick. There's one over there that's been very patient. In the back, yeah. Yep. In high school, the first time I ever made other people laugh, I was in a choir in high school, and at the end of that's not the funny part. You guys are jerks. I was in a very masculine choir. And at the end of the year, they had like the end of the year banquet, and all the seniors got to like give a little speech about like their time there. And almost every single one of them was going to the exact same college. There was me and 2 other people in our class that didn't go to the same college, and everybody there is just sobbing. I'm gonna miss you so much, about my best friend, and And I walked up there and I was like, all of you are going to the same college. Feel bad for me. And then I just kind of ranted on that, and people laughed at it. And I was like, that is awesome. But to answer your question, it wasn't until years later that I realized that that was stand-up comedy. And so I was 17 when that happened. I was 25 when I first got on stage to do stand-up. Yeah. One more. Right there. My ears are pierced. Yes, they are. I got straight pimped by a 4-year-old because of that. Yeah. I was delivering pizza for Domino's because my life is going well. You guys just laugh at all the stuff that hurts my feelings, don't you? Yeah. This 4-year-old kid, literally, he opens the door, takes one look at me, and just goes, hey, do you got earrings on? And I go, yeah, man, I wear earrings. And he just goes, you're a girl, and walks away.